So now I'm going to reintroduce Professor Eason, and she's going to talk to us about her longtime friend, Pepper Miller, for our closing keynote.
So we've had lots of great presentations, and I would like to introduce Pepper, who is an old friend when I was in the toy business way back in the 90s. Walmart brought in all 5 of their Black vendors. She was one of them. And that's where I met her during that time. But Pepper is a recognized researcher, author, thought leader, and Black American subject matter expert. She founded the Hunter Miller Group in 1995, a Chicago-based leading edge market research and strategic firm. Since then, Pepper has been helping Fortune 500 companies better understand and positively engage Black America so they have loyal customers and a positive bottom line. Some of her clients are AARP, Bravo, CNN, McDonald's, Proctor Gamble, Unilever, Walgreens, US Bank, and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and many more. She also co-authored with the late Herb Kent, What's Black About It, and her book, Still Black Matters in Marketing. Both books are considered to be the most important references about the Black consumer insights by many business leaders in the marketing industry. Pepper's third book, The Fundamentals of Us, Revelations and Insights to Win Black America's Loyalty Now, will be released next year. Pepper is also able to help audiences think differently about Black audiences and dig deeper into the Black American psyche by talking about both simple ideas and taboo topics. In this ability, it's earned her several awards in the Insights Association Laureate Award, the Moby Spirit of D Award, the Gibson Award for Excellence in Market Research. Okay, all right. Well, one of the insights Pepper gave me, and Pepper, I'm not sure who was the author. Was it, what's his name, who wrote Brainwashed, where you told me? Tom Burrell, one of the first Black ad agencies, where she said her insight to most companies was that we're not dark-skinned white people, and therefore you should market to the Black market differently. And I remember that as one of the insights that stuck with me.
So Tom Burrell, thank you, Wyla. Thank you, Rutgers. Really, this is wonderful. Yeah, Tom Burrell challenged the industry to, and his agency by asking the question, what's Black about it? What's Black about that ad? What's Black about that insight? What's Black about? You could pull up the slide, or do I need to do that? Yay. That is not going to be the title of my third book. It's going to be, I know we keep changing it and changing it, but I am the white girl. And I loved, oh, and I left my notes. I loved the last presentation she set, that's fine. She set me up nicely. I took notes from her because she talked about empathy and understanding and why and having purpose and mission. So my mission, my personal mission is to make sure that society and brands understand the value of Black, not only as a market segment, but as a people. I am driven by that. And I loved that she talked about all of that. And so I'm gonna get right to it. Here we go. So we're going to talk about 4 things today. We're going to put Black Americans in context. That's really important as many in society look at a Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, a Wyla Eason and say, what's wrong with y'all now? You have these people, you have Oprah, you have Wyla, you know, what's wrong with y'all? We have to put Black people in context to make sure that they understand us. There's a bunch of fundamental truths about us, but in the spirit of time, we only have 3. Now let's talk about today. And then brands that are getting it right. A lot of people talked about that today, but we'll talk about that. And then how do you engage Black people with relevance? Before we get into the presentation, this is the number 1 question that I get asked all the time. What do you people want to be called? Well, how do we reference you? Is it Black? Is it African American? Is it people of color, or is it BIPOC? What is it? What is it? So while all African Americans are Black by race, not all Black people are African American. Y'all get that? Because we have this growing population of Black immigrants from Africa and from the Caribbean who don't necessarily want to be African American. They want to hold on to their own culture, so they are Black. There have been a number of studies that teach us that Black is preferred over African American. However, most Black people are not offended if you call us African American. I like to be called Black because I like to see myself connected with the global population of Black people. But I am not offended if you call me African American. So it's okay to interchange them. I think some people from obviously the Caribbean or Africa might correct you, and don't be offended if they do. So the other mistake that people make is interchanging Black African American with people of color. That is wrong. People of color is the collective group of people. When you substitute Black African American for people of color, you are diluting our history and not telling the whole story. It gets diluted. So people of color is correct for the collective group, Black or African American. And then BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I am not a fan. I am not a fan of that. I think it's well-meaning in that the people who created that want to draw attention to the injustices of underserved people and people who have been marginalized. But again, you know, where's the history? I love that we have all these different segments today. My history is different from Asian and Hispanic. And so when you start calling me BIPOC, you don't get to understand my history. So who we are, you know, we can't be ignored. We're like, you know, 48, almost 47 million people. We have, I understand it's $1.6 trillion now. Most of us live in the South. There's a Black remigration. You know, we migrated up from the South, and, you know, in the early centuries, and now many of us are moving back, including young people. We tend to be younger. We still are optimistic people. In spite of all the things that we've gone through, we're way more optimistic. And there's a big business bounce back. Every day I say, God bless George Floyd. God bless George Floyd, because I am busy, 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 busy. Black people are supporting each other like crazy. So that's a really good thing. Okay. But in spite of us being younger, being optimistic, having $1.6 trillion spending power, there is this unconscious bias still going on with our business leaders in society. So they believe that forward thinking is to not talk about differences. We don't want to talk about differences. It makes people uncomfortable. You know, we heard Condoleezza Rice talk about that the other day on The View. We don't want our children to be uncomfortable, so we don't want to talk about Black history. That is so hurtful to me that I can't tell my story. Our history is as valuable as the Holocaust. It is. It's painful. It's not pretty, but it's our history. It's American history. So we don't want to talk about differences. And when we think about targeting African Americans, the response is a rhetorical question. They speak English, don't they? So they tend to roll us in with mainstream. And my response is, yes, we speak English, but are you talking to me? It's got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant. Different does not mean deficient. Different presents an opportunity. Different is not deficient. It presents an opportunity. So these three fundamental truths. Number one, Black people are different. We have a different history. Like I said, it's not pretty. As a result of that different history, we have a different lens in terms of how we see each other and how we perceive how others see us. It's been centuries of egregious justice. I love how Ta-Nehisi Coates summarized it for us in his article, A Case for Reparations. It is wonderful. It's 47 pages in The Atlantic, 2012, but it's really, really wonderful. Lots of examples of what happened to Black people over the years. And then there's this unfair treatment. Oh, you can't see it. So there's been a lot of talk about the Black Wall Street. Wyla and your sister are from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So there's lots and lots of news, that's been in the news about Black Wall Street, how Black people had these wonderful businesses, their own school system, their own hospital system, hotels, and it was air bombed and completely destroyed, and nobody went to jail. And then the second example is the Freedmen's Bank. And I hope they do some documentaries on that. In 1874, so newly emancipated slaves put their money in this bank. They convinced them to put their money in the bank. And even the soldiers who fought in the Civil War, put your money in our bank. And I think it was in 37 or 17 states or 37 states, I can't remember. And to the tune of $57 million. Now, it wasn't all Black people, but most of the money in the bank came from these slaves and these soldiers. And the owners of the bank absconded with the money. They stole the money. Where do you think Black people would be today? When people say what's wrong with them, where do you think we would be today if we had the strategies from Black Wall Street running through our communities? Where do you think we would be today if we had $57 million from 1874 today? I'm just give you 1,000, 2,000. Think about that for a minute. We're behind because we're supposed to be behind. So we have a different history, and our history needs to be told. It ain't pretty, but it's our history. It helps us understand the why we think what we do, why we have different beliefs and behaviors. All of this, everything ladders back up to that. When people talk about creating strategies for Black people, they got to understand this. This is very foundational, but you have to understand these things. So as a result of our history, these are some things that still are happening with us. We still are sensitive. We still feel undervalued. And it doesn't mean that we're weak, but this stuff is always there. It seems like it's always there. I think about stuff. I think about things all the time. I think the younger people think less of it, but we are confronted with a lot of times. Well, one of the insights is this mask of duality and code switching. We have to do that all the time. We don't do it necessarily for us. We do it for people who are different from us to make them feel comfortable with us. All goes back up to history. It all goes back up to our history. In the spirit of time, I would love to talk about each one of these. Badge value is another one. Buying luxury items to confirm and create how we want to be perceived. When we walk out of our homes in this brown skin, we are immediately being judged. We are immediately being judged. So we dress it up. That's one of the things we do. We dress this up, and then we get the house, or then we get the furniture, we get the car, we get the clothes, and then we fix up the house and stuff, because we have to present ourselves in a way where we can be accepted. We have a different history, we have a different lens, and we have different beliefs and behaviors, but different does not mean deficient. And so what all this means at the end of the day is that we want equality. There's a great, well, it was, I don't think they're doing anymore, but Iconoculture did this wonderful research year after year after year on values. They asked Blacks, African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians. You remember that, Ozzy? So they did this study every year, and it was 99 values, but the top 10 values for Blacks, African American, Asians, and Hispanics were pretty much the same, but the hierarchy was different. And year after year after year, the number one value for Black people was equality. For whites, it might be loyalty or something else, but it was never equality, never equality. And how that translates today, what it looks like today is the Crown Act. So I can come here with my hair like this and be accepted. I love the Crown Act, or all of those hashtags, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, unapologetically Black, stay woke, take a knee. And here's the deal. This does not mean anti-white. It does not mean anti-flag. It does not mean anti-American. It means I want equality and I want to hold on to my culture. That's what it means. Take a knee is not anti-flag, anti-white, anti-American. We want to be a part of America and we want to hold on to our culture. When you start, most for Black people, Hispanics, Asians, what happens with us as you become more educated, as you become more exposed, there's an expectation that you distance yourself from your culture. And this is the resistance to distance this, to not distance ourselves, but to hold on to it. Different does not mean deficient. It's an opportunity. So, number 2, we are defining cultural norms. You guys already talked about Rihanna a lot, which I loved. When we talk about redefining cultural norms, it means money for America. So Rihanna with her Fenty line, it was 44 shades of makeup, I believe, or 40 shades of makeup, between 40 shades of makeup that she insisted to be in the retail space in the store. That has never happened before. Did you know that Maybelline and L'Oreal and Lancome, they had 40 shades of makeup too? So what she did was she influenced them to do the same as she did, and it's become profitable for their business and profitable for America. Misty Copeland was denied. You can't dance, not with those legs, not with that booty. You can't dance, not with this brown skin. You can't dance. You can't dance. She became the lead ballerina for the American Ballet Theater. And she is encouraging people who are built like her, many of them Black and brown girls, but also other girls, to become ballerinas. What's happening though, they can now come in and dance and be a part of the company, but they can't dance on the stage. So she's fighting for that. But what she's done is there's an interest from Black and brown little girls to attend the ballet. So you're seeing more and more of us in the audience. I'm going to see the Joffrey soon. I'm going, Mitzi Copeland. And so we can go on and on. Tyler Perry made $150 million off of Black people before mainstream knew who he was. And he parlayed that into a business. We are redefining what's normal in marketing and in our country. And it's been profitable for our country. It again. Okay. Go back. And so then when we think about real and influential, there is a Black Twitter, there is a Black Instagram, there's a Black TikTok, and there's a Black Clubhouse. So social media is mainstream, but it also is where we congregate with each other to have these conversations. And not only with each other, but we congregate with, with other groups as well. But what I like, and I loved what's happening with Clubhouse, because when Clubhouse was introduced, it was boring and drab, and Black people tuned it up to make it a lot of fun. And they're talking about racial issues or how we do things. You know how we say, how we do. And we're bringing that flavor to these platforms. So it's about forced conversations, it's about celebration, it's about changing policy, it's about protesting and course correcting brands. What about that Dave Chappelle closure? Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm saying Lord have mercy, not to Dave Chappelle, but to the influence. I don't want you all to think I'm partial to that. All right, so at the end of the day, it's about positive realism, is what we need in terms of our messages and celebrations. Differences must be celebrated, not ignored. So what I want to do is show you 2 commercials to show you how different can provide an opportunity. The first, these are 2 Walmart commercials. The first one is from the it's a mainstream commercial with Bee Gees music, and I know y'all don't know nothing about that. I love the music. And then the second commercial was developed by a Black agency for the Black audience. And so let's play both of them, Jay, and then we'll talk about them on the other side. Okay, and now the black spot. Love the first Walmart commercial. I love it. I get it. But this one is relevant to me. Black men are one of the most vilified segments in the media. And so we know that, but we know good Black men like that in our community. We've been saying it over and over again. And so this agency had an opportunity to create a commercial to demonstrate that. So they show this Black man being celebrated as a caring caretaker. He's coming in with the groceries. He got his son. He and his son are cooking food. The food that they're cooking is relevant. We saw all of that. We saw all of that. A lot of the mainstream people, because it eventually went mainstream, they missed that. They got into the salt and pepper music, but they missed that. But our community saw it. So it was more engaging. It worked. It did extremely well. Yes, I speak English, but are you talking to me? Different does not mean deficient. It's an opportunity. Jay, can you go to, because I think I'm gonna. Okay, good. Okay, point number 3, Black Gen Zs and Millennials are not as mainstream as some may think. So when we think about our Millennials and Gen Zs, they desire a nation of equality. I think the last speaker talked about that too. They do not like the fact that they see the systemic racism going on. They understand it's unfair. 1 in 5 millennials, these are most millennials, not Black millennials. They believe they've been discriminated too in the workplace. 2/3 of millennials see wealth and income as unequally distributed. What they want is more inclusive topics in their college curriculum. Hello, where slavery is being taken out of the history books and Martin Luther King's story is being taken out of the history books. These kids want it in. They want that in. They approve of gay and lesbian marriages. They want the data collection profiles to include additional gender options. I love that. And they support single women raising children on their own. I can't read that up there. That's why I'm turning around. I hate this. So, but the Black youth tend to be more unapologetically Black. They're holding on to their culture. They want all of this too, but they want to hold on to their culture. They're proud of their heritage and they want the stories of histories reframed to tell the truth about the historical relevance and the modern day excellence and achievement of Black people. And they want those cultural stories promoted in schools. They want that. We're not listening. We're not paying attention to that. But the youth will save us. The youth will save us. When we think about also how Black Gen Zs and millennials are different, if you look at this white line below, let's pretend that that's like this mindset continuum. There's mindset continuum. There's 3 points on that line. The assimilated. We don't think about Black people being assimilated because we speak English, but those kids were primarily living and grew up in a primarily white community. A lot of the boomer and Gen X parents moved to the suburbs so their kids would have an opportunity of predominantly white suburbs, and they wanted them to be exposed and have an opportunity. So these kids, and I have friends like that, they're like 2 Black kids in a school of 1,000. They adopted the behaviors and the mindset of their surroundings. It's not a judgment. It's kind of what it is. It's what it is. And they assimilated into that culture. Most of their friends are diverse. Very, very few, if at all, are Black. At the other end of the spectrum, we have the insulated younger people, inner city kids, not, exposure to white culture, obviously. Again, we live in that dual culture, we wear the mask, but most of their friends are Black, close friends are Black. And then we have the exposed and worldly group. And what's interesting about these groups is that Their close friends are mostly Black, even though they have a lot of diversity, but their closest friends are Black. And so when we showed this to the millennials and Gen Zs, they talked about movement. They talked about moving from insulated to worldly, or moving from assimilated to worldly. But the point is that we've got this growing number of youth with a more Black mindset than what marketers believe to be. Black, Gen Z, and millennials, they're living these parallel lifestyles, but they're not as mainstream as some may think. So when we think about the other question I get asked, maybe 1A is, how do Black people want to be referenced? And then 1B would be, well, who's winning? Who's getting it right? So it's like the University of Chicago is doing a pretty good job of getting it right. I thought I better include this since we're speaking today at Rutgers, but they have these Black student organizations. They've got this Black Youth Project that all they do is conduct research around Black youth is great. They have diversity business and symposiums, and they are really wonderful, where they invite small business people in like me. They match you up with the corresponding departments. You come in and meet them, do a pitch, and you get work, and you get really good work from them. The University of Chicago Lab School, a lot of the kids there are kids of the professors, and they are mostly non-Black kids. But when I drive by every day, and it's going to be across the street from the Obama Library. Thank you. I was like foundation. I was like, that's not right. The Obama Library. And I see these signs on the fence, Black Lives Matter. And these are like little kids. So, they're embracing the Black community and that whole movement. And then 53rd Street, where it's one of the busiest streets around the campus, they have made that a destination for the city with lots of businesses, and they have made sure that they included a lot of Black-owned businesses on that street. So they're doing a good job, and they get that Black inclusion matters. The second one is Netflix. I like Netflix because they have this group of senior executives called the Strong Black Lead. And they are responsible for developing content for the Black audience. And this is relevant because a lot of brands think, well, I know we have a Black audience, well, I know that we have an opportunity with Black people, but I don't want our brand to turn Black. They are afraid of that. The Netflix was not afraid of that. Netflix is not a Black network. It's not a Black destination, but they have tons of Black content. They have tons of Black content. So it's what we call this unapologetic content. They are fearless in terms of reaching out to the Black community and developing content for them. And then the final is, my designer would be ashamed, but I put all those products on there. She would be ashamed that I did that. It's Proctor Gamble. Procter & Gamble, because of Mark Pritchett, who is the chief global brand officer, they are really all about promoting Black value. He is really an advocate about telling Black stories to his colleagues, which is so very important. He is white and he's also Mexican, and he came out as a Mexican American a few years ago. He said he was not embarrassed about being partially Mexican American, but partially Mexican, but he was afraid that people would talk about his family, his culture, and he just didn't want to hear that. I understand it, but I love that he's an advocate for this. So what he does internally, they have a lot of internal courageous conversations at Procter & Gamble, and they have been developing a lot of videos to take these conversations and these insights about the Black struggle out into the world, if you will. So there's the talk that's about 14 minutes, and it's a video of generations of conversations that mothers have with their children about the talk about race that we have to have. Did your mom talk to you guys about that when you were growing up? Mine did too. And then there's the first shave, and I love the first shave because it's a Black father teaching his son how to shave, and his son is gay. And it's so important for the Black community that tends to be still a little bit more homophobic. And also for the mainstream community to see that part of us as normal. So I want to play, they've come out with another video. I didn't have it, but I'm going to play this one, The Look, that was developed in 2019. We're almost done, actually. I love that. Very powerful. And I could relate to the swimming pool one. Some years ago, my girlfriend and I, we were, at this YMCA in a predominantly white community. And when we got in the pool, the white people got out the pool. And I was like, no, and we got back in the pool and we got out the pool. So I could, I get that. We're still going through this. We're still going through this. So this should be the last slide. So when you think about the Black consumer market, I think it's important to, we have to understand that, again, different does not mean deficient. It's an opportunity and they must be celebrated and not ignored. It's about understanding us and the why and our passions and things that impact us and how they impact us differently. I loved when the speaker before us talked about empathy. Empathy is about feeling another person's pain. It's about walking in their shoes. And in our industry, there has been a deficit of empathy. So we need to bring that back. I love that her mindset is about that. It's about knowing who we are really talking to and why. Remember, the millennials are, different from the boomers, and the Gen Zs and the millennials are not necessarily mainstream. It's about investing in research and advertising where, we congregate. And it's about educating yourself. When people say, I don't know what to do, there's my books, there's tons of books out there where you can read, educate yourself, and remain curious and asking yourself why, and doing a lot of investigating on that. Having courageous conversations is important, and in doing so, you can become an ally, an advocate, and an accomplice for the cause. Those are different things. One, writing a check, or are you getting involved? Are you standing up? And are you walking with me through the doors so that I too can have an opportunity for equality and justice? So I really appreciate everything. Thank you so much for the opportunity. That's the name of the new book. Let me explain again. Not your fault, because people keep saying to me, I didn't know. I didn't know. And I'm hearing that from when I started in 1995 to today. So let me explain again, which is my pleasure. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Pepper. I know I resonated with a lot that you said. I have an 8-year-old son, and I've had to have the talk with him multiple times since we moved to an all-white neighborhood. So I definitely felt that. So as we come to the close of our seminar today, I want to thank all our speakers, professors, students, our guests, Marla for doing all the coordination for this today, and a special thanks to the marketing department and the family of Dr. Williams. He left an amazing legacy, and we are grateful for all of his contributions to Rutgers.